photographers. You think you know everything about composition? You don't. First, you got to learn all the rules. Every little rule out there, you got to learn it, study it, embrace it, master it. And then what you do is follow this podcast, and I'll tell you. Welcome back to part 2. In part 1, we talked about the kind of like the normal way to take pictures, the normal way to understand composition, all the 4 elements, the basic stuff, the stuff you should know. And then once you know it and you've mastered it and you understand it, screwing it all up into a big ball, launching it into the bin and going, right, now I'm going to push through and make something interesting. And we'll look at some more of my work now, and hopefully we can, within that, find something that's a little bit more interesting than just a nice picture or a nice portrait or a nice bit of framing or good use of negative space. And we can start to really look at creative composition from an exciting, pushing boundaries, making people sit up and look and listen kind of perspective. And you can't do that always if you're following leading lines, correct depth of fields, correct, rules of thirds, putting people where you'd expect to see them. They're great founding stones. They're great places to start. But if you want to do something exciting that really makes people, not sit up and listen, sit up and watch, then pushing through that and learning how to not ignore it, I guess use it to your advantage is a better way of putting it, is where the good, interesting work's going to be. And if we just look at this picture on the screen I've got of the fabulous actor, guitarist, performer, sadly a Man City fan, but we can't all be perfect, can we? Kevin Kennedy, who played, if those of you remember, Curly Watts in Coronation Street for years. And I photographed some portraits for Kev in 2016, I think this was. And he was doing a show in Sheffield. Can't remember what the show was, but he invited me backstage beforehand to do some portraits with him and had a great time. And the thing about Kev being an actor is, I always remember my old friend again, David Bailey, saying, the thing about photographing actors is you never know which fucker's turned up. And it's true, I guess, that. But Kevin came across as real genuine. He didn't make me feel like he was being somebody else. He was just being Kev. And so I just said to him, look, let's use, all we'd really got was the changing room he was in. I brought a couple of Bowens lights, but I just said, sit in the corner, do what you do before a show. Just pretend I've come to talk to you before a show. So he did. Now, a classic portrait for this, actor portrait, I would think you would come in and you would do something like this one on screen now. Yeah? That's what I think most people would see a portrait as being. So I did do some of those because I came to doing some usable portraits for his agent and whatnot. But I wanted something else as well. I wanted something a bit more intricate, a bit more creative, a bit more lasting. And Kev to this day still uses this one on his social media profiles. Again, I've pinched the rule of thirds. I got the leading lines. We got some depth of field. But it's a nice portrait because he's kind of not slumped in the corner, but kind of not in the centre, not exactly on the third. It's not the most creative shot I did that day, but it's just something a little different, using a little bit of space. And again, with the negative space around him, we could use it for whatever. So this shot here, though, I wanted to make it look like he was in a dressing room. And so I just plonked him in the corner and said, just be yourself. You're having 10 minutes before you go on or whatever it is you're doing. Relax, sit how you'd sit, talk to me. So we're having a conversation as I'm doing this. And I'm not saying to him, look pensive, look miserable, look happy. I'm just saying, give me some emotion. And on this shot, this was the emotion. And I've got a little bit of fill light bouncing off the roof, to bring some light in because there's not a lot of light in the dressing room. But I kind of slumped him in the chair, or he slumped himself in the chair. And the good thing about that is we've got all that lovely negative space going on up here, all that interesting stuff. And if you look at it from a golden ratio, rule of thirds, the formal elements of art that you must use to be any good perspective, didn't mean to do that, I've kind of ignored it all and just, gone with what I thought was exciting. So I'm sitting on the floor on my bum, looking up at him. In fact, I think I was actually sat on top of the light box. He's looking a bit like, come on, Lance, I've been doing this forever. I've just got to show him a bit, crack on. But he's kind of low in the frame. He's not on the rule of thirds, which would be there or there or there or there. He's kind of a bit like not really anywhere in that. We've got lines that are leading away from him in some instances. There's one leading to him, but only here, just into his midriff, which is not really what you want to look at, is it? It's not the kind of, you wouldn't normally say, get all the leading lines going to somebody's stomach, unless it was somebody's abs, maybe. The lights aren't uniform. The lights are all multi-brightness. There's a mirror there which is not reflecting anything. We've got the Man City stuff there, which, rightly so, Kev wants to show that he's a Man City fan. His shirt's a bit crumpled up, but he's just slouched in the corner. He's an actor, working actor. 10, 20 minutes before he goes on for a show, come on, photographer, crack on, and I got the shot. The thing that works for me, the reason why it works, and I think this is a little bit like the one I showed you of Eleanor earlier, or in the last episode, is because I'm looking up at him. I'm not looking at him in a normal perspective. Normally, I would be sat up a little bit and looking directly at him. On this, I'm slightly below him, looking up, and that gives a little bit more of an unusual view of a person. Normally, we talk to people at eye level, don't we? I'm looking up at him slightly. He's leaning back slightly. He's relaxed. People might say there's no composition in lunch. That's a poorly composed shot. And if you look at it from a competition rules, or the rules of composition, if you look at it from the rules, it's not great, is it? He's not on the leading lines. He's not on the rule of thirds. He's not in the golden ratio. What are you doing? But it's the most interesting creative shot I got on the day. And one of Kev's favourites as well, because it's relaxed, it's normal, it's not contrived, it's not over-processed. We haven't put loads of stuff in there, we haven't put stuff on the wall, it's just him in the corner of the dressing room, getting ready before he goes on to a show. And that's one of the approaches I take to make more interesting photographs, certainly of people, than I would have done 10 years before. 10 years before, I would have taken them all like the one I showed you, like that. And I just took a load of those. And I can show you why I know that, because in 2011, I photographed a lovely fella called Steve Huison. I'm not sure if everybody will know Steve. Hopefully, I might have even got them here. Oh, yeah, I've got them here. Steve Huison's an actor again. He was in Full Monty. You all know that? Yeah. He's in Full Monty. He was in Coronation Street. He's been in loads of stuff. Great actor. Another great artist. He's a fabulous artist. But if you look at the set of pictures, I lost some of these because I had one of my hard drive failures, but the ones I rescued, if you look at them all, they're all pretty much straight-on portraits, which are nice. They're nice. I always leave a little bit at the top when I'm doing portraits because I'm always paranoid of cutting people's heads off. And if you see that final shot, it's a great portrait. But I'm at eye level. He's in the rule of thirds. He's in the golden ratio. He's got leading lines off his shoulders coming in. We've got a nice depth of field of f11. It goes by the rule book. Yeah? Nice portrait, did the job. Is it an exciting shot? Would it get you excited? Not for me, not as much as that, because of the reasons I talked about. So, perhaps sometimes it depends on what it is you're doing and why, what your approach is, what you're trying to do. That takes me back to the narrative. What's the story you're trying to tell? In this case, it's a celebrated actor, pissed off having his photographs taken before he goes on stage in 20 minutes. Nailed it. Yeah? And sometimes things can become contrived because you're trying too hard. But I think, going back to what I've spoke about in previous episodes, if you're just taking the shot, I set the light up, told him to sit down, took half a dozen shots, moved on. We weren't there for ages. I only had 20 minutes. That was probably one of about 3 shots from that set that I actually took and used. So got it pretty quickly. And again, capturing the moment rather than going... I mean, if I was doing a portrait like the one that's on the wall here of Tilly, for example, or the one there of Laura, where I'm lighting for specifics, or even a basic portrait, I would have not done the light like this. This is light just literally bouncing off the roof, low roof, ping, light on, just to illuminate the shot. But having said that, the light's not bad. I mean, but it looks like we're using the room light, which is kind of what I wanted. I could have come back in and gone, put light there, done this, done that, but then I've got one shot and Kev's got to go work. You know? Some things are just too raw for the podcast, too honest for YouTube, and too controversial for Spotify. That's why I started the lock-in. The lock-in is my weekly email where all the filters are completely taken off. Every week I share my ideas, my brain farts, my thoughts on photography, education and reality. No algorithms, no polish, just the truth straight to your inbox. If you like the Lance Burkitt encounter, you're going to love the lock-in. Let's get into it. Horses for courses, as they say. But then again, if we look at other kinds of photography, not just people. As you know, most of my work is people portraits. But I do other stuff as well. I mean, I think for me, so, you know, some of the times, particularly if you're photographing natural stuff like landscapes, or even things like buildings, architecture, you're always kind of thinking, I need to get that landscape, that horizon straight, or I need to get those buildings looking straight. But as you know, lenses don't work like that, and lenses will show you buildings leaning away from you, falling down. But an example might be like this I took in Greece earlier this year. Like this one here. It's, I can never remember the name of the bloody building. But it's as you walk up the Acropolis and enter the Acropolis where you can then see the Parthenon in the distance. And the Temple of Nike and all that. This is what you have to walk through. And I just thought, I suppose I just want to get some pictures and make me feel like they must have felt walking into this place when it was of use. And so I just look up, and as you know, if you've seen most of my other kind of architecture work, I just look up. I don't do the straight on thing very often. And so this is like, it doesn't conform to any, or relatively few, of the formal elements or of the things that you should compose into your photograph. It's off kilter, it's leaning away, which makes it look like it's slightly going right to left. There's a big bang of negative space in the sky. Who wants to look at a blue sky? But I think because of the way the light's hitting the columns, and I got enough light in the fill to get the internal bits lit up. I mean, it's certainly got space and texture and form in there, hasn't it, which are formal elements. But I think very few photographers, good, bad, or indifferent, would frame a shot like that. They're more likely to frame it, like a sensible person might, looking for a holiday snap. Oh, I've already opened it. But I'm not looking for a holiday snap. I'm looking for something that makes people think, oh, why is it off kilter? And it's off kilter because I wanted people to look at it and feel like people might have felt when they were walking up it. So I could have made it like that. Yeah. We could have done that, and we could have used bloody fill now to fill the bits in, but I don't like doing that. So we could have gone like that and made that shot. But straight away, to me, that just looks like a postcard. Just think, and I think because it's now so properly composed, it's so what would be expected of a composition. It's a nice picture, but it doesn't, for me, doesn't do that. And it's just that little skew that makes it interesting. Might be subconsciously for a lot of people, but those are the kinds of things that make people probably not even know why they like a photograph. They just do. And I think it's if you can make it look and feel more like how people see it, rather than, I mean, photographers have this big thing only about my vision, which is great. And sometimes that works. It really does. I mean, Ansel Adams was a star of making his vision, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think when you're creating, I've said it before, I create work to please myself in the first instance. But whether you're in a portrait, a landscape, a building, a dog, an eyeball, a frog, whatever you're doing, if you can compose it and make it look like it would do if somebody saw it, then I think you're halfway there to getting it. And I mean, people subconsciously use leading lines, formal elements, all those things when they stop and stare at something. And I think probably subconsciously they're led to those things anyway. That's why when you place them over a photograph, people go, oh, look. But I think most humans are too busy and too stressed and too not built that way to think about that. They just want something that's pleasing. And I think that's why the most interesting photographs are the ones where they're not quite straight, they are leaning a bit, they are from a different perspective, they're not the same thing that everybody takes. The best paparazzi pictures tend to be the ones where the guy's hung back a bit and just got a bit more of a different shot. Not because he's crap, not because he's trying to be different, but just because that's where the interesting stuff is. 100 photographers have got the same shot, that 101st one's got something a bit different. And you can apply that to all types of art. Again, go back and read the book by John Berger, Ways of Seeing, or watch the TV series Ways of Seeing. Talks you through a lot of this and talks you out of it and into other areas. And yes, I do use the formal elements. Yes, I do use the rules to compose shots. But I also, because I'm able to understand that and because I'm able to see past that, I think I can make more interesting stuff by quite rapidly, quite quickly being able to see through that to where the interesting stuff is. And I'm not saying I always do that. I mean, quite often I do just do a normal composition. But I think, I mean, you've seen my street photography. I shoot from the hip. I don't hold up to my eye and shoot very rarely. So everything's from a different perspective anyway. And, you're going for a kind of different view. It's almost like a kid's eye view, isn't it? 5-6-year-old kid, waist high. Imagine them walking around taking pictures. That's how I'm seeing the world when I'm in the street. And the slight tilt back of the camera, slight wide angle, gives me a completely different perspective to Joe Bloggs of doing a normal portrait with a zoom lens, probably. It allows you to see things and feel things in a different way. And it's very rare you get it on the money and get the formal elements and the perfect portrait or the whatever is in there. You normally get an awkward angle, a bit of a strange view. And that is what I think makes street photography interesting. And not the stuff where you've had 10 minutes to compose a shot in the hope that that person's going to stay there while you get it. And I mean, a lot of the stuff I did in New York, Malta, Greece, this last year, 18 months, came about because you don't have time. You just, because I'm on holiday and I'm wading through streets and places with my camera. You don't always have time to get the perfect picture, and shooting from the hip like this on screen allows you to get things that you wouldn't have got. I mean, neither one of those two people are framed in a traditional traditional, properly by the book composed picture. They're just not. Half of her back's cut off, his feet are cut off, there's a bit of wire coming out of his head, there's a bike behind him, there's somebody else in the background. Can't help that much on streets. But it's an interesting shot because he's having a conversation with somebody on the phone, which is a bit, what is it? No idea I'm doing it, so he's not looking at me. He's concentrating on his phone. The lady's eating and drinking and not really paying any attention to him. So it's a live, living, breathing street scene where the composition's not fantastic from a perfection perspective, but it's more interesting because if I'd have risen up, put the camera to my eye, looked at him dead on, even if he didn't look at me, it just becomes a standard portrait then, does it? It's just a street portrait. It's not really a street shot. And I've had this conversation with my wife, Kirsty, quite a lot, where I even did it in a couple of podcasts, and I said I want to become a bit different street photographer when I get in people's faces, then realise there was crap. But Kirsty said that's what makes mine and some of the photographers work different, because we're not doing that. But whether it's because we're chicken shit to do it and hot, it works out that you get more interesting pictures, in her opinion. And over time, I think I've come to that kind of conclusion that I get more interesting pictures also because I'm not going into people's faces. You know, like this one here, another from the hip shot, missed the bottom of the wheel off. If I was doing a proper shot where I was just said to him, pose a minute, I'd have got the wheel in, definitely. Or I might even have, more like that, got most of the cart out. But then you lose the point of the shot. It's the guy in the street selling shit. And I've just gone past, took a snapshot. He's off centre. He's not in the rule of thirds. He's got some leading lines. Happy days. But it's a more interesting picture because I've not worried about hitting the rules. I've just taken the picture. I mean, it helps when you've got a rough idea of exposure, rough idea of distance, rough idea of focus, rough idea of depth of field. All those kind of things help. That's experience. But all the rules around composition are thrown out in those instances for me because I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in getting a snapshot, a semi-controlled snapshot of the street I've just seen, of the people I've just seen. And, I've taken pictures while I was on holiday of people that are just standing there, and I've taken them more in a traditional way like that. But if you look, what's happened now, they're perfectly centred, they're both in the rule of thirds, they've both got leading lines. It's a nice shot, but it's not that interesting. If I'd have been down here, shooting from the hip, looking up and the side on, it would have probably been a lot better, more exciting image. And that's really, for me, where composition comes in. It's, people think composition is just where the hell you stick people in a frame. It's not about that. You've got all the technical stuff in that. You've got everything, every element of that picture pulls into the composition. Big mistake you see quite often is a really nice picture, it's nicely framed, person looks great, or the thing looks great, but in the background's a big red telephone box. Not placed anywhere, just randomly, sticking out like a sore thumb. So instead of your eye going straight to the person, the thing, whatever it is, you go straight to the telephone box, or the postman. Postmen are another thing that always get in the way. But if that was the point of the picture, if that's what you're trying to say, then great. Where's the focus? Where have you laid the focus? Where's the focus laid? Because the focus and depth of field on a picture are clearly important to the storytelling. If you've got, let's say you're taking a picture of somebody with a really heavily freckled face and you use a shallow depth of field so people are really drawn in to be able to see the freckles, brilliant. But if you shoot it a bit wider at f11, you're not really going to see that. So it depends on your narrative a lot of the time. But even so, I guess what I'm trying to say in a nutshell is learn composition, understand all the elements, understand all the things that come together that combine to make great composed pictures, greatly composed, whatever the phrase is, massively, greatly, brilliantly composed pictures. Rip it up, chuck it in a bin and make interesting pictures. I remember saying to my one of my tutors on my master's degree, literally this happened. I said to her, she showed me this picture, I can't remember what it was, picture of the woods or some shit like that. And I said, I like the light, but the composition awful. And she just looked at me and she went, fuck off composition. And I thought, what does she mean? At this point, I was just still shooting commercially, pretty much. But then I thought about it for a few days. And the more I got into doing my masters and doing other bits, it dawned on me that she was right. What's composition? If you've got a picture of a person doing something that's a one-off, it's like, last chance to do it. And you're that busy framing it up and getting everything in the picture that you actually don't get the best bit of the shot. What's the point? But if you got slightly skewed, slightly off-centre, slightly, tilted, slightly underlit, slightly not quite the focus you wanted shot, but you've got the right expression, the right thing happening, then what the fuck does the composition matter? And I think there's a lot of truth in that. I think if we can live by that, we just make more interesting pictures. And I think part of the reason why there's a lot of stale photography out there is because a lot of people spend too much time composing, not enough time just taking the blood shot. I used to be guilty of that, not now. I do sometimes, if I have opportunity to. You know, if I'm photographing a model or an actor and they just want a specific thing, I might take a bit more time to get that. But generally speaking, I shoot a lot quicker, shoot a lot less. I worry less about composition than I used to do, because I realise the interesting stuff is when you collapse all those rules, bend them, break them, reshape them, and make them your own. And I guess that's probably true in art. It's probably true in anything that doesn't have to be like aerospace, technically perfect. I would imagine you can apply a loose kind of way of hitting the rules. And certainly in photography, it works for me. And I can't see, my mindset's changing. I can't see me ever going back to the way I was, really heavily focused on composition. But you do need to learn it. You do need to understand it. You do need to appreciate it. So it's been nice talking to you all about composition. I feel like we rattled through that really quick. That didn't feel like 50 minutes or whatever it was for the whole thing for the both episodes. But hey, time flies when you're waffling shit and having fun, doesn't it? So thanks for staying with me. Thanks for paying attention. If you would like, please, to do the old subscribe, like and share with your mates. It's greatly appreciated. I'm fighting a losing battle with the algorithm, as always, and every time you feel like you start to get on top of it, the buggers change it. So if you would still like, share, all that stuff. Not that I'm looking to be a millionaire from this, but it would be nice to get more people involved, get more people interested, get more people thinking about photography. Remember, we've got the raging battle against AI that's going on in the background. The more of us doing photography, the more of us embracing it, the more of us getting stuck into it, the less chance we've got of losing it to AI. And I actually see that every day, where people are kind of like embracing it, then realising it's shit. The more and more and more I watch of Hollywood and stuff like that, it's just everywhere and it's grim. But if enough of us keep going, enough of us keep buying cameras, enough of us keep showing an interest, then I'm convinced we can win. And that 3.5, 4 years I think we've got left before it might disappear, it won't, because we'll have saved it. So do that, please. Like, share, subscribe. It'd be great if you did. Just a reminder that if you really do like this shit, those 2 or 3 of you that come back every month, if you subscribe on Patreon for 2 or 3 quid a month, you can get these as a full episode earlier. And then some other bits and bobs. Also, I've started the newsletter, as you might have seen. So I did start blogging again a couple of weeks ago, but because I've been a bit ill this last few weeks, I haven't written. But there's 2 or 3 new pieces on my website, and I will start blogging again weekly when I'm mentally capable. But I started a newsletter called The Lock-In, where I just talk about things that I can't really say here because YouTube doesn't like it. So I've got a bit more info, a bit more of me ranting, a bit more of me being honest, a bit more open dialogue about what I really think about the world, about photography, about art, about creative stuff, all the stuff that's going on. Subscribe to the newsletter on the website, The Lock-In, and every week I'll send you a rant and how I feel. All right. So anyway, thanks for staying with me. Thanks for loving photography. Thanks for keep the old steam train of photography rolling. Let's break that AI stuff into a million pieces. And in 5 years' time, I'll still be doing this, and we'll still be talking about all things photography without all that bollocks. All right? Hope you're all well. Look after yourself. Catch you all on the flip side. Cheers, everybody. Thanks for tuning into the Lance Burkitt Encounter today. I really do appreciate you spending some time with me here in the world of photography, education and reality. If you enjoyed the episode and feel like you learned a bit of something, do me a favour, like, subscribe and share the channel with somebody you feel really needs to hear it. And if you're able to, and if you'd like to, please head over to lanceburkitt.com/shop and treat yourself to some of the Lance Burkitt Encounter merchandise. After all, that's how we're going to keep the channel and the podcast alive and completely independent. Until next time, keep shooting with purpose and stay true to yourselves. Cheers.
You won't believe, yeah. I can't get you on my